Okay, everyone, this is the October 2015 GNU Radio Developers Call. By the way, one thing we've recently added is we have a GNU Radio YouTube channel. Where we posted the videos from the GNU Radio conference. And I've also started uploading the developer call videos to that channel on a different playlist. So we have one central place for these kind of things.
Do we have a link for that we can post?
Yeah, can you start talking about releases, or Jonathan, and I'll post links in the meantime?
Yeah. So one quick thing, Martin. We need chatbot.
Oh, chatbot. Yeah, I don't know. What the hell? Okay, so start meeting. Okay, chatbot is on.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can just copy and paste stuff. I've done that before.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'll fish out that link, and you can start talking about releases.
Okay. Jonathan.
Okay. So nothing major to report other than I think a plan is coming together for the next releases on Maint, Master, and Next. As far as Maint, our next release, 3781, there's nothing driving this like a major bug fix, but we've accumulated quite a bit of bug fixes since the release before the show in August. And so I'm planning to put together a maintenance release over the next week or so, checking with everyone if there are any pending bug fixes to be posted, in particular GRC. Sebastian, it's great you're here. Saves me a call.
Okay.
For 379, the last major thing that we wanted to get in was the work from Tracy on the LDPC stuff, and that's going final code review now. So if that's the case, I think all we really need is some seasoning, and some testing. So 379 off of master should be something we can do, sometime before the holidays, over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then finally, 378 on the next branch has been hanging out for quite a long time. Mostly what we're doing on 3.8 is not like the 3.6 to 3.7 transition where we did a huge amount of refactoring. This time 3.8 is mostly about just updating our revs of things that we're dependent on. So I'm putting together a spreadsheet that I'll share read-write with a few people and read-only for anybody. That's going to go over all the 3.8 proposed ideas and their status, and then at some point call a meeting to go over that and collect any feedback from that. But that's something that we should start actively working on. And of course, the major issue there, not to put you on the spot again, Sebastian, is Python 3 and Mako and the GRC issues that come out of that. That's all I've got.
Okay, yeah, definitely the Python 3 is probably going to be the biggest thing. I was worried a bit about the Qt5, but Paul from ADI in France helped us out a lot with that, so that's great. But yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be there's probably a handful of stuff to do for Python 3 support elsewhere in just our general Python blocks. But yeah, it's going to be GRC as the major effort there. So I will say, Sebastian, one of the things that we're concerned about is the conversion of XML to Mako, or whatever the template kind of structure is. Once we figure that out, if we can come up with a plan to where a few of us can kind of tag team on converting the current XML stuff over, if that's what's necessary, then we can all, a bunch of us can hack on that together. But we still, I think that we've talked about this in the past, so this is out there. The biggest concern that I have with the whole thing is for out-of-tree modules and continuing to support them, the XML, because we can't require everybody to come back with that, so we still got to have that as part of the plan.
Funny thing, I had just the other week found a Cheetah fork, so to say. It has a reduced function set, but it is Python 3 compatible. So I don't know how widespread that is. I think Yahoo uses that internally, and they open sourced it. So we might still be, it might still be possible, say through pip, to get cheetah support in Python 3 if we really wanted to.
We don't, but that might still be a temporary solution for for migration or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah, just for migration purposes.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about that probably in another GRC specific call. But I wanted to make sure everybody was aware that that we're aware of this and that we are actively trying to not leave all the out-of-tree modules that are already out there behind in this conversion.
Well, one of the things is the rumor keeps happening that Python 3 will be the built-in default for the next long-term support Ubuntu release.
Yeah, they've been kind of, as I say, they've been kind of threatening that for the past couple of releases, but there are definitely indications that they're becoming more serious about that. Like they're slowly doing things. Like we had this problem with the PyQWT5, that they only had Python 3 support for that. If I got that right. Yes. So they're definitely doing things like that where they're kind of forcing your hands subtly, but I think they're going to have a pretty big hammer coming out soon.
So Fedora 23, I think, should have Python 3 as default. So
okay. Yeah. Yep. And we always kind of wanted to be ahead of that. Like we didn't want to have to, be scrambling to fix things as soon as one of these big distros come out with that support. I think we are still going to be a little bit there, just because the motivation isn't great. But I hope that we have it. At least we're talking about it in the right way at this point.
As far as I understand, you can still install Python 2, and the Python command is actually always going to be Python 2. It's just going to be missing, so it's still supported. I mean, it's not like they're going to drop Python 2 altogether.
No, of course you can always install it, but like I said, like certain things, like some of the packages that you would normally apt get are going to be only Python 3 compatible, and you'd either have to install or pip install, or hopefully have an easy way to do some of the other Python 2 based modules.
But since pip will be in PyBombs 2,
true. So that I mean, hopefully we can solve this.
Just chime in here.
Yeah. One more thing that I want to say, as Jonathan mentioned, we wanted to get the rest of the LDPC stuff. If you kind of follow through that code, there's going to be a few changes made come 3.8 for API reasons. So I've kind of indicated that there's some deprecation and some changes that are going to occur there. So that's going to be minor. The big thing is that it is terribly, terribly slow, and it's known. We know that that's the case. We almost even know why. And I've made efforts in the current implementation such that we can change the back end. Right now it's using GSL, and hopefully we can get a better, back end thing to, library to do stuff instead. So, jeez, my stupid phone. Given the fact that the API allows us to change the back-end library, if we want to do our own, GF2 support, library stuff, whatever, anybody who wants to use LDPC and is good in the coding and optimization, we recognize that it needs it, and we would really, really like people's help who have a direct need for this. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
The LDPC codes have kept us busy for a long time.
And this is, that's going to be something that I want to bring up when we start getting to the GSOC and how we can do better about this next time. So, with that, I would like to move on. The next item on the agenda is PyBombs, and that's Martin. You wanted to say a few things about that?
Yeah. Okay. So PyBombs 2 is a project that I've been mostly working on with help from Seth, by the way, and the reason we decided to even do that was because PyBombs 1 had a couple of deficiencies. It was just a couple of features we were lacking, but actually adding them onto the current PyBombs code was really difficult because it's not very modular, and So there were good reasons to start from scratch. That's what we did. And the current PyBombs 2 is actually in a state where it's actually working, and it has a couple of nice features that were sort of built in from the get-go. For example, it's designed so you can just install it into your system. It's gonna be supported through pip at one point. Currently, it does setup tools, so you do Python setup install, and you have it on your system, and then you can have multiple prefixes. So you can have multiple installations of GNU Radio in your home directory, and it's very easy. And what you can also do is you can sort of declare a prefix to be in a cross-compile environment if you have SDKs available. And then that's all very simple. So you say, okay, I want to install this SDK into that prefix, and then from then on out, all the out-of-tree modules that you install into that prefix automatically get cross-compiled. And it has modules for everything. So the old PyBombs had RPM and deb support, but in PyBombs 2, this is completely modular, so you can add all kinds of satisfiers. So you can have Gen2 emerge, run automatically, which doesn't work yet, but it's easy to add. But it also, does stuff like check package config, etc., etc. So there's a couple of problems with PyBombs 2, which are mainly that the things have changed with respect to PyBombs 1. So first of all, everything now is YAML, which is sort of file format that we've been going for with other projects like Cgran, and I think Sebastian has some ideas for using YAML in GRC. So and there's no other file format. So the recipes, the configuration files, the inventory files are all in YAML, which means you can easily edit them, but they're also easily machine readable, very nicely so on both parts. That means that old PyBombs 1 stuff is just simply not going to work anymore. The recipes won't work, and some of the commands have slightly changed. So there will be a transition period. And also, like the last couple of weeks, we've had lots and lots of bug fixes on PyBombs 1, where it's sort of starting to become more popular. That I don't know if they're already in PyBombs 2 or not. So whenever we sort of transition from PyBombs 1 to PyBombs 2, there'll be a period of instability. So PyBombs 2 has a milestone and an issue tracker on GitHub, where we sort of we'll pretty much know exactly when we'll be able to make the transition, like feature-wise. So I can if people are interested, they can go there and look at it. But it's already doing a couple of useful things. So anyone who's actually interested in the details of PyBombs, I recommend having a look at that repository, and I'll paste the link into the chat right now. Yeah, as soon as I'll find it.
Martin, do you plan to have these two coexist, or are you going to go from PyBombs being version 1 to PyBombs being what we call PyBombs 2 now?
That's a good question. So there's a couple of problems with coexistence, and the biggest one being that the recipes are different file formats. They're actually very similar, but not quite identical. So you can't read them like from one into the other. I actually have a conversion tool for PyBombs 2. So I hate the idea of just nuking PyBombs 1 because people use it, and so I think it'll be more of a coexistence. But my preference would be to very actively deprecate PyBombs 1. Heavily discourage people from using it. Mainly leave up the repository for people to maybe even put it on a separate branch or something like that. I don't want to kill it. That would be a bit brutal. But I do want to deprecate PyBombs 1 as fast as possible. And if PyBombs 2 is much easier to handle because the whole pip install thing. You don't have to git clone something to get started.
Well, my suggestion is if we are forced into a period of coexistence, that we don't call it PyBombs 2, we call it something with a different name, so there's not confusion.
Okay, I'm open for suggestions, but I also kind of, PyBombs is a bit of a brand now, so.
That's
I understand. I have this picture of people thinking, just hearing PyBombs, I'm getting confused between the old and the new and all that. It's not a big deal. It's just a suggestion to if we're going to make that much of a break, that we do that with the name as well. But
yeah, I worry that actually might cause more confusion.
Yeah.
People are like, well, we had build GNU Radio, and you said this, and then you said PyBombs, and now there's this new thing. I'm not, and I'm not saying no to your suggestion, Jonathan. I think there could be confusion either way.
It's just my passive-aggressive way of saying I never liked the name Pi Bombs.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan of the name itself, but now people have gotten used to it. I kind of like the idea of just keeping it around.
Yeah, it's not a huge issue for me.
And if people picked up the idea that they should use Pi Bombs in the past, that's still true, right? It's just a different, it's just a different version of Pi Bombs. But if we say like tool X, then we basically change all our past recommendations, and we have to update the wiki, etc., etc.
Yeah. The one thing that I would throw out there is hopefully we can get Pi Bombs 2 out there. What do you think your timeline is there, Martin?
I mean, I'm sort of doing this in the evenings, which means it's pretty slow. But it's really not super difficult stuff. So.
And you seem to be making progress on it.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of commits every week. Definitely this year. I'm pretty confident about that. I wouldn't make any further promises though. So if people are interested in helping out, it's easy to compartmentalize development and work on different stuff, different things at the same time. So I'm happy for contributions.
So then, hopefully, if we can get this out by the end of the year, and then we've got a few months, we still don't really have a timeline for 3.8, except that it will likely be sometime next year. Then the period of deprecation of Pi Bombs over Pi Bombs 2, maybe we should try to coincide that with the 3.8 release, and just kind of move over everything at that point. And kind of have Pi Bombs 2 be the way to install and work with 3.8 kind of.
Yeah, I like the idea. If you're going to burn it all down, do it all at once.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm available for Pi Bombs questions on the mailing list. Next topic, though, I'd like to move on is. GSOC. Sorry, GSOC. So GSOC and anything that's Summer of Code. So this year we participated in the ESA Summer of Code, but not GSOC because we were not accepted as an organization. So I'd like to apply for both again for 2016. And in order for us to be successful in GSOC, we definitely need a very, very good project list. Now, I sent out an email yesterday on the mailing list asking for ideas, and there'll be sort of multiple phases of defining projects. And at the beginning, I'm very open to all kind of crazy ideas. So anything that sounds like a cool project, please post it on the wiki page. And so I have one example of a project up right now, which is improving Pi Bombs. But I think a very good place to get ideas on successful projects is the list of all the past projects that were actually done by students, which is on a separate wiki page.
Real fast, Martin, do you have the wiki page link handy?
I was going to pull it up, but I can't access the wiki.
The website, yeah, it's being difficult right now.
So, but actually, wait a minute, it's in the email I sent yesterday, so I can find it.
Yeah.
I'll be able to find it. Yeah. So projects should be something that is easily that can be, well, not easily. It doesn't have to be an easy project, but it should be something that someone who isn't super experienced in all of these things, GNU Radio, should be able to do in a 3-month time frame, assuming they're familiar with programming, that kind of thing. They don't have to be experts necessarily in GNU Radio. So we've had a couple of interesting projects in the past, a couple of coding ones, so for example, Polar codes, LDPC codes, a radar toolbox with DRM toolbox, these were all out-of-tree modules. Out-of-tree modules are also very good additions. So we have Pi Bombs and Folk as kind of sub-projects to GNU Radio. So I've already put Pi Bombs up, but I think for Folk we can probably come up with a couple of good ideas, and we sort of we should probably have them all running under the same flag, GNU Radio. Yeah, and that's for now. That's pretty much it. I'm really, really open to all kinds of suggestions because having a nice, clean, and well-defined list of projects is the number one requirement for us to getting into this program.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I would urge us to do is to think through a set of themes that we might be interested in. I'd like us to having an open field of ideas is great, but I think given it being too open, people might not have any clue where to even begin. Yeah. So if we could help identify some particular areas, that might be it might be good for inspiring ideas elsewhere.
That's actually a really good point. And we've also had a couple of themes in the past that didn't work out that well. So let me just throw out a couple. So for example, having out-of-tree modules that implement, say, standards or specific open problems is usually quite easy because it's already compartmentalized by itself. There's no dependencies on it, and the projects are usually clearly defined. So for example, last year we had Johannes working on the polar codes. That was actually something that went in tree. But it was a clearly defined project. It was encoders and decoders for polar codes. That was it. So stuff that didn't work so well in the past were anything to do with a specific embedded platform. So we've had a couple of excellent students come out of that, which is very good. But the actual codes that came out of it weren't really that useful in the long run. One thing that would be, I guess, most useful for everyone is anything that is sort of GUI related, say GRC or Qt GUI stuff. But those projects seem to be unpopular for some reason. Still, they are very easy to work on, and will give whoever works on that a lot of fame because everyone will be very happy to have better and shinier GUIs. And I think I can send out, like, in addition to my email, I send on the mailing list and maybe add some comments on the website on themes, but sort of I think sort of implementing specific signal processing things that we're missing and that those need to be identified, and GUI things are sort of on the top of the list, off the top of my head.
Yeah, that just gave me a great idea that and a few people, I think Chris maybe has been interested in this, are offline analysis tools, the plotters that we have. I'd love to make a much better standalone signal analysis toolbox that kind of plugs into everything properly.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We actually had that suggestion up twice already, but I think it was never really well defined, and it was one of the reasons.
Yeah, and I think so. The way that I had done things in the past was all these like individual tools, right? Plot it in the time domain, plot in the waterfall, plot the PSD. Those were kind of one-off things. So,
exactly.
So a lot of the base is there. So if we can structure the program around taking all of those bases and making a integrated, tool and kind of help us define initially what it looks like, that might help inspire or attract somebody there. So. Yeah, is there any other? Do we have any other big themes? Jonathan, should we talk, maybe you and I offline, about a couple of kind of the internal guts of GNU Radio to see if anybody could help us with a few things in there? That starts to get very specific and very low level and a lot of expertise required. But there's still certain things in there that would be nice if we could get somebody else to help us out with.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'll follow up.
And then, yeah. All right. Anyways, let's just keep on this kind of some big picture themes to put out there, and then have individual projects listed underneath them. So the one thing that I wanted to mention that I was bringing up with regards to the LDPC work, which did take me quite a while to work on, is the project as stated. Like, Tracy did a great job. She did absolutely nothing wrong, because the project as stated was build LDPC codes in GNU Radio without any concept of integrating it with working flow graphs. So when it came to me to do the integration with GNU Radio to put it in there, like, I could have thrown it in as it was. But then when I tried to make it work with our asynchronous encoder and decoder blocks, or our tag stream encoder and decoder blocks, it didn't fit. So I had to do a lot of extra work around there. Plus there were some API issues that we had to address. So whatever we do when it comes to, if there's a thing, a block, or a piece of an application that's supposed to fit into GNU Radio, I'd really like us to work harder on defining what does the finished product actually look like. can we even provide the, like, for a forward error correction code? It's fairly easy at this point because we can give them a flow graph that said, hey, here's a flow graph that transmits data over an asynchronous bursty nature. Your job is to make a new code that works given these applications, and they're not finished unless it actually encodes it, transmits it, and decodes it within the context of everything else. I just want to make sure that in the future we have very well-defined goals for the project, specifically with the intent that the integration or the merging into GNU Radio is straightforward. And we haven't done that, so like I said, it's no fault of the students. We just haven't been stressing that in the past. But I think that's going to really help us keep stuff moving in the future.
So I don't remember if it was specifically for the LDPC code, whether it started as an out-of-tree module or inside GNU Radio. But I would recommend to avoid some of the more mechanical integration issues that we recommend for things that we plan to pull into GNU Radio. They start as a branch of GNU Radio and not as an out-of-tree, just because that forces people to think in terms of getting along with everything else.
Yep. In those cases, absolutely. Yeah, they did. Those ones did start as out-of-tree projects and not branches, and that was a problem, more minor, but it was definitely an issue. And you're right that by putting it into the project itself forces you to think about it as part of the whole, as opposed to just your thing. So yeah, we should definitely keep an eye on that. I think in general, I think Jonathan and I have been mostly hands-off on a lot of the projects, and we might just have to suck it up, the two of us, and work much closer with the mentors on defining what the project scope is going to look like, and let the mentors, define the problem and work with the students, but that we should have a hand in, okay, at the end of the day, it's going to come to us, we're going to integrate it with GNU Radio, so let's look at it from that perspective. I think we should do better on that this year. All right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is also hypothetical because we haven't even applied yet, let alone been accepted. But
and I will say that on that, Johannes did a good job as far as producing code that went into GNU Radio fairly easily. So yeah, that's a success case.
Yeah. And maybe just as a future reference, I think it's a good idea to just set a fixed date in the project timeline from the beginning when like a pull request should be ready, and then still have a few weeks to have the student do some more work based on the review we give him. But that was just my observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can work more on code deliverables as opposed to just documentation deliverables, which is what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as I said, right now there's really nothing else we can talk about. If we get good projects, that is sort of the first and foremost requirement for us even getting into the program. So let's focus on that for now. Next thing on the list is FOSDEM and the Hackfest. I sort of want to address them together. So we still haven't received confirmation actually that the STR track will happen in FOSDEM. I have no reason of assuming otherwise. I'm pretty sure we were the first to submit our proposal. I think it was a good proposal. We've been there in the past, and we've already identified a couple of speakers that are interested in talking. So FOSDEM is the last 2 days of January 2016 in Brussels, Belgium. And it starts Friday night with the social event. Even as an event by itself, I can highly recommend it. It's a very good conference, a lot of good content. The past 2 years, we've had an STR track with all the videos from those presentations actually available on the website. So a lot of good things have come out of this.
Yep.
Before FOSDEM, we have a Hackfest going in Europe, and this time it's going to be in Berlin. So it'll be hosted in Seabase. So like the last Hackfest, I kind of want to keep this semi-open, so I don't want to just blast out an invitation to anyone to just come along, because there's some there's some space limitations and logistical limitations. But if you're interested in coming, then please contact me, and we'll see what we can make happen. Yeah, so the Hackfest is Monday through Thursday, which leaves Friday to travel to FOSDEM. And yeah, that's all I have as an announcement for now.
Okay. Yeah, you have no actual specific location yet?
Yeah, no, I do. It's Seabase.
Oh, sorry. I was writing notes.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So it's in Berlin, Seabase.
Seabase, okay. I don't know what that is. CB, like as in...
It's a C- base. it's a hackerspace, and it's...
Got it. Yep, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's all the announcements I have. Really, that's it, and except for the working groups, unless someone else has something that. Okay, so
how are the short URLs coming along, Tom?
They're not, Chris. Sorry. I thought, yeah, we need to get back together on that later.
Yeah,
Hey,
maybe.
Chris, are you interested in checking out PyBombs 2, giving us some early feedback?
Yep, I just cranked up my laptop to the release candidate of new Ubuntu, and I'm fixing a bunch of recipes because PyBombs 1 doesn't install GNU Radio anymore, so I want to get all the recipes fixed in time for people to just be able to update their Ubuntu machines, and then I'm probably going to have to make the same changes to the recipes in PyBombs 2 and stuff.
You're talking about 1510?
Yep.
Can you either an IRC or email let me know what broke?
Yeah, I'll just send diffs for the recipes. I mean, I've got it working pretty well now, so it's just a matter of I need to change some of the package names that are acceptable, and add alternates, remove some unnecessary constraints and stuff.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it broke for PyBombs, if it breaks for anyone else doing a source install. We might need to update doc files in the tree as well about versions and whatnot. So I'll follow up with you.
Okay, so I have a feeling that Sebastian will be the only one who actually has something to say about their respective working groups. I actually have to say I've been a bit lazy on the community side since GRCon. Since GRCon. So there will be an announcement in the next couple of weeks about further efforts to improve our educational material. But right now I don't have anything specific to say, so I'm just gonna, Sebastian, leave it to you to talk about GRC and stuff. That's because a lot of things have been happening in GRC land recently.
Yeah, I had some evenings to code. But first of all, I'd like to officially mention Seth, who has, who's gonna from now on help me reviewing changes and moreover reviewing my own code, so we can get that faster into mainline. And I'd like to thank him for that. And he's also wanted to help organize more stuff. And we're gonna probably do a call the week after next. I'm just gonna double check with some people to get a date when they really have time. But yeah, I thought about end of October for the next call. So what leaves is the usual string of features that are in the works or have been merged recently, and that's the bypass blocks feature, Ceph wrote, of course. That took a while to get it done right, but I think we're in a good state, and I haven't heard any complaints yet, so I'm assuming that's working now.
It's awesome.
I made some minor GUI changes, like a submenu for new, where you can pre-select the type of flow graph you want to create. And I added an option to have GSC execute a different or alternated script of the generated code. Now this is something I wanted to have because I've always had people ask me, how do I extend the code GSC gives me? And my answer is usually just subclass the block, add whatever you want, and then just start it manually. Well, from now on, you can have each flow graph start a different file, or even just launch a deploy script if you want to copy your flow graph to a remote machine and execute it there. GSC will accept any command you give it, and then fill in the flow graph name and the default Python interpreter for that sake. But so that gives a lot to play with, and I'm hoping by modularizing the generated code, I've added some functions and help make it easier to extend code if you really want it. So that's that. The other big thing that I'm pretty excited about, and it took me a while to get it done more or less right, I hope, is the embedded Python blocks, which are currently reviewed by Ceph. So what we're going to have is a block that basically opens your editor that you usually use to code Python, and whatever Python block you type in there will automatically be put into a block XML, so to speak. You get the wrapper in GSC just as you type and save the file, and whatever code you put there in the work function will just be a normal Python block when you generate and execute that.
Sebastian, one thing that I've always wanted was just a block to, or more of a variable type block to create a Python function or a class that could be used elsewhere. Sounds like it would be pretty trivial to do the same basic thing. It just wouldn't be a Python block. It would be a function.
Yes. Yeah. Sure, I can add that. That's actually pretty simple. I just have to. Let me just take a note. Okay.
One of those things where every time I try to do PMT stuff, there's so many things that would.
Sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
With Python backend. Now there was also this suggestion to have to have all the GUI parameters set through the properties dialog, and just have users enter the work functions. So for if you're a beginner and you don't know anything about coding blocks, then you can just get to the DSP part of coding, which I might add later if that's really a use case for people. I'm not actually sure if it's maybe better to learn the basic how to write a block, boilerplate stuff, instead of just shielding new users from that completely. Anyway. I also coded a little part that auto-generates missing hire blocks when you open a flow graph for the first time, and if you have all your depending hire blocks in a specific directory that might even be just the same one and have them named after their block keys, then GSC will open them, generate them, and then you can bootstrap projects much easier than you can currently do with a GSCC script or something.
Will that work with older flow graphs?
With older flow graphs? Yes.
Okay.
It's a yeah. Come again?
I just want to. I think this came out of the issue with the GRLTE stuff, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll work with the older flow graphs. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a new flow graph only thing. No,
a flow graph actually don't change. It's just if there's a key missing, it'll also look in the current subdirectory if there's a GSC file with that name, and then generate that.
Yeah, no,
on the fly,
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's been missing for a long time, and it's great to hear that that's being done.
Is it recursive, as in if there are missing higher graph? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Recursive and protected against cyclic dependencies if ever anyone is crazy enough to do that. Yep. So that's it. I also was that.
Sorry. I just remembered that we still have not the ability to have loops and flow graphs, and I think we need to talk about this at some point because that's no longer technically enforced, but yeah, that's something completely different.
Sorry, loops and flow graphs?
They are not allowed.
Yeah.
Now, but technically, I don't think it's still necessary without the SDS, because thread per block can deal with that, but that's completely off topic.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, that's a complicated chicken and egg situation comes up with that. But it's one of those things, Tom, that I think falls into that category that you mentioned earlier that we should talk about improvements in the core infrastructure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Still don't really see why, but everybody seems to want them.
So Sebastian, you missed the most important new feature of all.
Yeah, well, the rewrite that we started at the last conference is somewhat come to a halt in the last few months. I just didn't have the time to really sit down and work on it, and but yes, with our plans to switch to Python 3, this is going to be more and more important. I realize that.
Well, I mean, one of the thoughts that had occurred to me was that we switched to Python 3 by switching to the new rewrite. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Okay. Yep. Other than that, I guess that's all from my side.
Oh, that's cool. It's more than all the other working group leaders. I believe how much margin. There's a lot of cool new features.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the topics we have for this month's call. So.
Yeah, so I guess just a quick wrap up. Just Volk seems to be continuing to progress. Nathan keeps putting bug fixes and new stuff in there. Doug does have some coprocessor. He's got some stuff that's near working, and I guess he's working on an OpenCL implementation to make use of GPUs as his first use case of his buffer stuff. So that's great progress after almost 2 years of talking about it. I'd be curious if Philip has any thoughts or lessons or whatever he learned at the Embedded Linux conference last week for his stuff. And then we still need to kind of get going on some of Tim's work. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up what I know of what's going on in the other working groups. One thing that I would like to say is after GRCon, I asked all the working group leaders to send me information, like a review of what happened during the working group sessions, since I wasn't able to attend any of them. So I did that I got some of that from most people, and I updated the wiki page for the working groups with that information. I would like to ask all of the working group leaders now to make sure that your wiki page is kind of reflects the things that have gone on and are going on within your working groups, so that they're proper landing pages to figure out what's happening.
Okay. Okay, so the next call will be in November. It will be the 19th. Wait a minute, is that actually a good day?
Is that a good day? That's a good question.
Isn't there stuff going on?
No, that's fine. Thanksgiving is the next week. Yeah, so I think that's still okay. I think we're far enough away.
So the 19th of November.
Yeah, I will probably have to miss that. I will be teaching an RF Knob class.
Ooh, nice. Okay, 19th of November it is. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and see you next month. Bye-bye.